Hi, welcome back to Down to Earth Mystic. In this video I'm going to touch on Major Arcana 10 through 14, and in the last video we talked about, I believe it was 5 to 9. So, as usual, bear with me, I will turn the camera towards the cards and we will start talking about that. Okay, as promised. As in previous videos, I am using 3 decks to show the variety of imagery. This deck is the Rider-Waite Radiant deck, and this is the Sun Moon Tarot, and this is Crystal Visions Tarot. So, 10th card is the Wheel of Fortune, and you'll notice in all of them there is some type of circular imagery in the middle, and a lot of times this can refer to either a cycle coming to an end, or you kind of taking the wheel and changing your fate in a way that you desire. It can also indicate just, change of fortune in a positive direction. So, as you can tell, they're all named the same thing again in this deck. Now, moving on to the next card, though, you're going to notice a difference. As we discussed in the last video, the Strength and Justice cards are sometimes switched. In this deck, the 11th card is Strength. In most decks, the 11th card is Justice, and where you see Strength as 11, Justice is 8, and vice versa. So, as we discussed in the last video, Justice can indicate a couple of different things. It can indicate, excuse me, a judicial decision in your favor. It can also indicate the correct balance of your efforts equaling the result. So if you put a lot of effort into something, the result will be positive in that direction, or equivalent to the effort that you put into it. If you put very little effort into something, then the just result of that is that you will have exactly that amount of effort in return, which you may be disappointed with, but it does align or reflect the amount of effort that you put into it. So you'll notice in both of these there's a figure with scales and also a sword. And so swords in general, you'll notice later when I talk about the Ace of Swords, a single sword, or even multiple swords, like a two of swords or of the sort. It is going to indicate truth, logic, and an air element. So it is generally something rather than intuitive, more logical. So that would be the Justice card, and of course Strength in this deck. Next card here is the Hanged Man. And so even though when you think of the Hanged Man, you might think, oh, that does not sound comfortable. But it really has very little to do with the fact that this person is suspended, and has more to do with seeing something from a totally different perspective. So you see in every one of these, the man is not being hung by their neck, but instead by their feet, so they actually see a totally different perspective. It could also indicate kind of pausing action, and that also allowing another perspective to come in. But notice the imagery is actually very, very similar in all of these decks. Right, moving on. Now, this card can be feared if you don't really realize what it actually means. Death card most definitely never means the death of a person or the death of anything alive. It actually more so means the end of a cycle. But what's beautiful about the end of a cycle is it makes way for a new cycle to come in. So you'll notice a lot of times that in traditional imagery, you're going to see a man on a horse with a flag, and there's a child somewhere in the imagery, and the child is supposed to indicate the new thing coming in. And of course, in both these two cards, the person on the horse or the main person in the card in this one does look pretty scary, does seem to resemble death that you would see in movies or something of the sort. But again, it is not really meant to be scary. It really just means the end of a cycle, making way for something new. And as you'll see in this deck, the Sun Moon Tarot, it actually follows death with rebirth. And there's a lot of, I think, known imagery with a phoenix that indicates a very, very strong person that rises from the ashes. So again, I do take that as the end of a cycle, making way for something new. And I would say in every case, it is making way for something new and better. So again, please do not fear this card. Next up, we are seeing Temperance. Now with Temperance, you'll see quite often, and it is actually showing in all three of these variations of imagery, you'll see a person with wings, with 2 cups, with 1 foot in the water and 1 foot on land. And so this card has actually also been called the Cosmic Bartender. But it does indicate finding balance. It's just finding peace with balance. And I find it interesting that in this deck there's fire in 1 cup and water in the other, because typically it really is water to water. And it does indicate kind of passing something from one hand to the other and back and forth, which you'll see also a similar imagery in the 2 of Pentacles, which does also kind of indicate balance. But in this case, it is more so an internal balance, and the 2 of Pentacles can be kind of finding balance in your outside environment. So that is it for this video, and in the next video I'll be talking about 15 through 21. So look forward to seeing you at the next video.